Far out. Yeah, I can read it, but does it? Oh, actually, it doesn't matter if it looks weird because I'm not on camera. So.
Not on camera.
All right. Happy. All right. Yeah, that's fine.
Is that? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So just a warning's gonna look even weirder. You know,
That's all
pretty
right.
much up my nose.
Yeah.
Sorry, give me something.
Is there something, what sometimes we do, we line up to something. Is there something you can line up to? Is your
No, I'll just make sure it's almost on my nose.
Yeah.
like?
That was all right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. I'll just do that sort of almost thumb distance.
When we're on an individual play class, it's absolutely fine. I don't want you to be uncomfortable when you do it. But I just,
Yeah.
while we've got the time, we might
Yeah.
reverse these things.
Yeah. Good talk.
I'm just going to practice Suzanne's close up.
Your
Now, you
close up,
guys,
Suzanne.
just
As nervous as I am.
I'm not actually nervous.
do we have our speaker back in the room?
Sorry, do a pretend swap over?
Yeah, we're going to do a swap over, and this is
I think he's politely saying, Suzanne, get out.
What? Going to wait.
Oh, okay. We're just going to do the rotation.
Yeah.
Suzanne Hopman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Lovely
Thank
speaking with you.
Now we're going to do the Everyday Greatness Shuffle. James Grabowski, welcome.
Should I say anything until wait till I sit down?
I like the way you stood, so don't slide your bum over like you're in the front seat of an old E.H. Holden.
Yeah.
I like the way you stood up and moved because I can move with you and that helps bring
Yeah.
the other person.
Like a more of a flow.
Try and do something about this. I want to get a flippy forward. Sorry.
Welcome to the panel,
was
Nicole.
pretty good. And then
Great to have you here,
at the end,
Nicole,
if you two
truly.
talking, what happens then? Let's see that.
End of us talking. James Grabowski, that was the most inspiring interview I've ever
Well,
witnessed. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Now get the hell out.
Oh, we swap over, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. Nicole Chettle,
Good to
welcome.
have the-
Thank you.
Good to have the full hour here.
You could have a sip of, could have step off and step back in again.
Would you prefer me to just like?
I'm just a bit wary of you sitting there for ostensibly 40 minutes.
40 minutes.
Oh, how long?
I'm not speaking to Nicole for 40 minutes. She's nice, but she's not that interesting.
No, but I'll be here for 20 minutes, first one, then for my
Oh, there,
20,
yeah.
then that. So that's 60 minutes. That's all right. I can sit here. I'll just be poised.
You can just have a drink of water, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was pretty smooth.
If, when you're talking to me,
Mm-hmm.
do I ignore James? Is he in shock? Can we talk to him as well about the same issues? How does it, or am I just talking to you?
Just to me, I think these guys can chat if you go to a wide shot, can't they?
No.
No?
Okay.
All
Oh,
right.
yeah.
So there's that shot there's got all three of us in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, I'm just
So
saying,
if James
'Cause
wanted
sometimes,
to
yeah.
chime in
like
and
if
say
something
something.
comes up, or if, like, you know,
It's
I
like,
could be
what do you
talking, but
think?
if he wants to say something, or if I could say, hey, that's like, whatever,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Yeah.
are you happy with
And
that?
then I'll just be on the three, which is fine. The white.
Yeah.
You're all mic, so.
Do you get
And
that,
so
Dion?
so we ignore the cameras and look for you except for this message?
Nicole's saying
Yeah, I would do that
if it comes up, can they do a bit of byplay, the two guests? Can you cut to the wide shot when they're doing that?
If, I mean, just if it comes up, might be the
Yeah.
same for you guys, if,
I totally agree. Yeah.
because that'll be more natural.
Yeah.
And when we give our message, is that straight down the barrel?
You're in this one.
Okay.
And I'd be in that one. Or do you give the message when you move?
When I'll ask you.
Oh, okay.
Nicole Chettle, welcome.
you will talk about
before
the
I
ball
start. I
before
believe you have something you want to say.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, glad
And
you said that
then
because I'll be going.
bang.
Do I? Oh, the card. Righto.
That's not how he wants you to do it.
Yeah, you remember Andy Clark?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, mate. Andy Clark. I remember Barney ended your AFL career at 13. One of those dodgy handballs he does behind most players. Hospital handballs, I hear they call them.
He reminds me of
Suzanne,
the
do you
conversation.
have a business card with you at all? Please may I have one? Because I would love to keep in touch. On one platform or another, I'm sure there are stories to tell in a good way, so I'd love to keep in touch. Yeah.
Well, I might go and get.
So, and I
Lines in
don't
my
move
head
once I'm
before we
on,
kick off.
that's it.
Yeah, so you'll be there
So what
till
do we
the
got?
end.
5 minutes?
Yep.
Yes, you have.
All right, I'll go to the bathroom. There we go.
great position as cinematography. I've decided to relight the entire scene with fire. Barnaby, you could just jump in there and do your
Yep.
boy routine.
So Nicole brought in some props for me. She said, I've got no idea what you want to talk about, so she brought these things in just in case. This is a card from Andrew Scipione to Nicole's daughter from some Women in Police day that Nicole was at.
Oh, fantastic.
And then this one is a letter that Nicole's dad, so Nicole's daughter's granddad, wrote to her.
Got to worry about reading it, shit. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's pretty bloody nice.
Keep that card up there in front of me. I'll do a white button. Now, in this today, there's activity going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can see it,
Yep.
the audience will put together that's where the sound's coming from. I guess if there was a huge bang or whatever,
I'm going to mention in the intro. So
Yeah,
you
it's cool. It's good how they put them right there.
know, I don't mind if they roll them in and out during the shot, but when they start there, I'll wait.
yeah, it sort of gives me a line of talking in the intro. So we're here today ahead of the ball tonight, so people sort of go, oh,
Because
yeah,
the
that's why
CBA
that's-
being Saturday, they said
Oh,
it
that's
adds on a whole lot
Yeah.
of complications, but I thought that maybe they would come to it.
Sorry?
No, it's fine.
This is much better anyway. You need a good
Yeah,
space.
Oh, what I do?
Yeah.
Basically, I was I'm a cameraman editor at networks, and then I always had mates who were doing work outside, like freelance work outside, and they always had extra work, and they were saying, "Oh, could you shoot that for me? Could you cut that for me?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't have gear," and then just one day I decided to buy the gear, and then their extra works came my way. And then it just built up from there. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And then over time, yeah, I'll do that. And then you develop your own clients. And then they become consistent. And then they're like monthly clients. And then you're like, geez, I'm going all
And
right.
then suddenly don't feel like being so polite to your boss.
It's funny you say that. I wouldn't put it in those terms, but I'd say you have a little bit more leverage. You know, it's like, I don't think I can do that day.
Gee, that was a ballsy thing to say when your boss is sitting in the corner.
My mum's husband is Tim Warner.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tennessee.
Has he had a crack?
Never helped me get a job anyway.
Yeah, oh, really? Yeah. No, because what's interesting, coming here, one of the things I was excited about was seeing the setup.
Well, this is absolutely scaled to what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know, 1% more and you can spend a whole lot of extra technology that's not needed, and any lower and it's not good enough.
Yeah.
But I mean, lots of people try to do it, not as well as this.
No, I can see the work in it, and it's I'm the same as you. It's like it's efficient. So like when I
Dion rang
I
me
did-
the other day and goes, I bought another one. He bought another one of these.
yeah
Like someone has
was selling
a sale or whatever. So now we've got 4 of them.
not necessary, but it's a great backup.
Oh, you have to have a
Backup.
The one thing about a camera is,
Yeah,
where's the other one?
yeah, because I've run the gauntlet a few times, and it went from a job that you're like enjoying doing to like quite stressful. But then when you've got a backup, it all changes. So I've got a backup for everything, for lights, for audio, for cameras.
Yeah, I have just been relighting it.
Now I've got to get a backup drone. That's what I found.
But yeah, right. Where's the other one?
Do you love them? Yeah, it's
Do you like the angles thing? Do you like the light?
got a drone. I'm gonna get a backup one now.
And I can do things harder, if you like.
Posture too, man. So Kyle, if my posture's bad.
Just have to speak.
It shouldn't take. They've only got a few more things to put down by the
Microphone
time.
close.
Because they're putting them down, aren't they? They're not pulling them up.
It is what it is, Nicole. We've got to get ready for the ball tonight, and this was a favour from the girl, so
But they're not pulling them up, are they? They're putting them down. So they've only got a couple more to go. Oh no, they've got a few more to go.
Every day, we get things off the ground, keeping you connected and secure. We keep things running smoothly and know the importance.
I reckon you'll enjoy yours, mate.
Okay.
It's very much about what we spoke about at work.
Yeah.
Just how you don't have to aim for the huge things, just the everyday stuff, like get the attributes from people around you, that sort of stuff.
Can I ask, how do you know when you're a role model?
How do you know? I don't know, that's why I asked these guys.
Well, don't ask me that.
Well, I don't think your intention is to say be a role model. Like for me, it's to actually observe people who are being quite successful in their lives, but not even financially, but just emotionally, at work. They're really level-headed, and you kind of role model what they're doing good and what they're doing, even what they're doing not so well. And say, well, I might not do that in my habits, but I might do that. And that's what I was doing. But then it was interesting how Barnaby come up and said, "Oh, I see you as a good role model," and it was interesting because I was actually applying that every day for a long period of time to actually get that response.
Great book called Mastery. Have you ever read that?
No, I never heard of it.
It's about that level of being masters of what they're doing.
Yeah, it's funny, I don't think any of the great people in society aimed to be great. They just went, right, well, I've got to do X, Y, and Z today, do it really well, and just kept on doing that every day. Did it well, did it often.
Every day, we get things off the ground, keeping you connected and secure. We keep things running smoothly and know the importance of giving back. We're always looking at the bigger picture. We are ARA, reliable solutions for facilities and infrastructure.
Welcome to Everyday Greatness, and thanks for watching. I'm your host, Barnaby Howarth. This is a show designed to help people realise there is greatness in being an everyday Harry Sacker Rolls. We're live today at the beautiful Hyatt Regency Hotel in Sydney. We're smack bang in the middle of one of Sydney's best vantage points. The Hyatt Regency sits on the water and is within walking distance from the Rocks, Barangaroo, King Street Wharf and Darling Harbour. We're here today ahead of the Jelly Bean Ball tonight, hosted by the Danny Foundation. The Danny Foundation was set up in the memory of Daniela, the daughter of Donna and Brian Meads Barlow. A type 1 diabetic, Daniela died in her sleep because of a low blood sugar level, or a hypo. The Danny Foundation gives a voice to type 1 diabetics and on their behalf lobbies government and industry to bring the technology, devices and education to Australia that would have saved Daniela's life. The Jelly Bean Ball is the Danny Foundation's major fundraiser for the year, and tickets for tonight's event are already sold out. But if you'd like to contribute to the Danny Foundation, you can log on to their website, danny.org.au, find out what services they offer and where your skills might be utilised, and get in touch. As a type 1 diabetic myself, I can think of no better cause. I'm going to be asking the question today on Everyday Greatness. Do you have to be a great person to be a good role model? My guests today all have one thing in common. They're all sensational human beings. Just by making the decisions they make in life and the way they're living their lives, they are all inadvertently sensational role models. The small things we do in life that we think nobody is taking any notice of are sometimes being observed and even copied in the weirdest of circumstances. A couple of months ago, I was having a sleepover at my sister and brother-in-law's house, and they were explaining over dinner that the following day, a babysitter was coming over the next day to take care of their 2 young boys, and that her name was Sarah. So I immediately broke into some Jefferson Starship and started singing, Sarah, Sarah, no time is a good time for goodbye. The following morning, over breakfast, a young girl walked in the front door, who I assumed was Sarah. So I started walking towards the door. But as I was making my way there, I heard tiny footsteps running down the stairs. And when he got halfway down, my young nephew started singing, Sarah, Sarah, no time is a good time for goodbye. I'm not telling that story to pass judgment on whether teaching young children Jefferson Starship songs makes you a good or a bad role model. I just want to use it as an example of how people, especially kids, are sometimes soaking up things we have no idea about. If you modelled yourself on my first guest, you'd be doing yourself a huge favour. Suzanne Hopman is the CEO and co-founder of Australian homelessness charity, Dignity. Dignity provides essential services for Australia's hidden homeless, people who've fallen on hard times through a myriad of different circumstances. Dignity provides services like a freshly made bed and a home-cooked meal just to help these people get back on their feet. And it's an absolute pleasure to say that Suzanne joins us now. Suzanne Hopman, welcome.
Welcome, thank you.
Before I start, I believe you have something you want to say.
Yes, I want to thank our co-founder Michelle Mulvihill for introducing me to you and to creating this opportunity for me to speak about dignity.
So you are, given what you've done in your life and what you are doing in your life, you're one of the most modest and shy people I've ever met. What did Michelle say to you that encouraged you to come on today's show?
That we've got a story to tell, and that what we're doing is amazing work, and it needs to have a voice.
Well, you do have an amazing story to tell, so tell us about it. What does Dignity do, and why does it do it?
You know, Dignity started about 3 years ago now, coming up to 3 years, and we looked at, I've worked in the sector for quite a long time, and just feeling frustrated that there was so much more to be done. So we met up and one day and just said, okay, now's the time. So we did what it took to get Dignity off the ground, and we opened our first shelter for women and children in the Southern Highlands. And since then we've grown from our first shelter to now 22 homes across New South Wales, and we can accommodate all people from single men, single women, women and children, families, couples. So it's tremendous work and very, very rewarding.
So when people think of homelessness, they tend to think of people sleeping on park benches under newspapers.
Yeah.
But you guys cater to the hidden homeless. Who are they?
Well, I think when we still have, there is the perception that of people who are homeless, that they are that the visual homeless that we see on the street. But that, according to the latest census, is only around 6 to 7% of homelessness. The rest of them are people that you would never pick. They could be me, could be you here, standing here, who's experiencing homelessness. And often they just need a short-term hand to help in that time of crisis and of real need. And Dignity is there at that time to help walk with them along to find their way out of homelessness as quickly as possible.
So what drives people to be in the situation where they need to reach out to someone like Dignity?
A whole range of different reasons. No two stories are ever alike. Our eldest guest who's staying with us is 90, and we've had newborn babies with us as well, and very, very different situations. The gentleman who's with us at the moment, he worked hard all his life, owned his own home, and his adult son was struggling to find work, went into his own business, and he put his house on the line to support his son, but unfortunately the business didn't work out, and the son started falling to patterns of substance abuse, and he lost everything. And at 90, for the first time in his life, he found that he had suddenly had no safe place to stay. So Dignity was there, and we welcomed him into our homes, and they're just like our home. They're beautiful places that are really warm and inviting, and we were able to give home-cooked meals for him, and just to journey through that space with him to find something longer term.
So you personally, what made you passionate about giving somewhere for the hidden homeless to shelter?
I guess it's somebody has to do it. It's when I think you become aware of a problem and you can see it as plain as day. It's easy to say, make judgment on people for their situation, or say there are lots of organisations which are doing great things. But when you see it all the time and nothing's being done, we often can look to governments or look to others. But really, if you see something wrong, it's up to us to do something about it, and that's what we did.
Very true. So you spoke about the 90-year-old man. What are some of the stories you've seen, and how does it make you feel when you see people's lives turned around from being on their knees, having nothing, to turning their lives around to being back in the everyday world?
We have an amazing team of Dignity, and everyone puts so much into creating results as possible, but we celebrate as soon as somebody finds their own home. It's and when they come to us, even it's part of that learning journey and of getting into it, and we're able to help them set up that new home, and we stay in touch and hear how they're going, and like everyone, people have good days and bad days, and if I look at who are the heroes that in homelessness, it's every single person who comes through has a story to tell, that rises above and is able to fight through that.
Beautiful. So as the CEO, how do you keep your volunteers passionate to keep providing the services you guys provide?
So we have probably our biggest volunteering opportunity is our Dignity Dishes, which makes our home-cooked meals. So far this year we've made over 100,000 home-cooked meals. Now we could buy meals, but when volunteers put in the love into those, I'm the fortunate one to see them receiving them often, and our team, they often burst into tears. It's often the nicest meal that they've had in a really long time. And the thought that somebody's actually cooked it for them. So we pass that information on. We've got our Facebook page that we keep in contact with stories all of the time, and our volunteers know that they're making a real difference in the lives of others when they contribute.
So if there's people watching, where do they find out more about Dignity and how they can get their hands dirty and help you out?
The website's always good, so or our Facebook page is probably more active than our website. And they can like and follow us on that and keep up to date with when we have opportunities to come.
It sounds pretty resource heavy. Where do you get the funds you need to keep this floating?
Well, we do work to the bone. It's a tight ship, and obviously the more we have, the more we can do with what we've got. And it's about trying to allocate them as frugally as best we can. It's a combination of a lot of different things, but we do rely heavily on the goodness of people to be able to support the work that we do.
So I've got to ask you, while we're sitting in the Hyatt Regency ahead of the Danny Ball, do you guys have an annual fundraiser?
We do. We've got one coming up on the 11th of August, and it's at Mittagong RSL, and we're hoping to raise some funds there for our work.
So get along to that. Mittagong RSL, what's the date?
11th of August.
11th of August. Where do people get tickets?
They can, if they look on the website or on the Facebook page, there'll be a link there to buy them.
Beautiful. Get on board.
Great.
So let me ask you personally, did you have role models growing up?
I guess I've always been fascinated by people and their stories and listening to them and really understanding it. And I think from everybody I've been able to gain things, and I've thought, that's really amazing. Whether it's, as a child, it was someone being kind to another person who may have been bullied, or someone who just took that extra step out of their way to right a wrong, or to follow a passion and to really believe in themselves and others to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. And who are your role models today?
It's probably the same thing. I see role models in people in homelessness, and say, wow, what resilience and strength do they have every day? It puts life into perspective when we worry about small things, and you see people who can overcome so much hurt and things in their life, and still continue with a smile to get up every day, and to search for those houses in the private rental market and put themselves out each and every day. So for me, they're the heroes, are actually the people that come to Dignity for help often, and our team, our amazing team at Dignity inspires and encourages me every day.
So you have a huge responsibility as CEO of this charity that a lot of people rely on. Do you make decisions as CEO because you want to be remembered as a good role model, or you just do what you have to do every day and do it well?
Exactly right. We've got a motto at Dignity, getting better every day, and every day we aim for that, to make a difference, a greater difference in the lives of others, and we work towards that, and we're making amazing progress.
Beautiful, getting better every day. I love it.
Getting better every day.
Do you think it's fair that celebrities and sports stars are put up as role models in today's society?
I think that there's a place definitely for raising awareness of significant issues and coming alongside that, and we see great good. But just like in everybody, there's things to role model, and there's things that probably aren't something that we want to take on board. So I guess it's taking that individual person and seeing the wonderful things in them.
Yep. So do you think people need to actively go out and do things to become good role models, or is setting a good example enough?
We all have something to give, and in whatever context we are and whatever we do. And it's every day making that difference. And that can look different for different people.
Suzanne Hopman, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And best of luck with Dignity.
Thanks very much.
Now we're going to do the
Lovely
Everyday
talking to you.
Greatness Shuffle and get James Grabowski over. James Grabowski, welcome.
Thank you, Barnaby. It's great to be here.
If you ever thought that just being a good husband or a good wife or a good father or a good mother wasn't enough, you need to speak to James Grabowski. James is a cameraman and an editor at ABC Television. He also runs his own business, End-to-End Media. James is very driven at the moment to become a good role model for his young son, Ellery. But in doing so, he's keeping things as simple as possible. James is looking at the people around him in his everyday life, people at work, his family, even schmoes at the bus stop, and trying to find attributes they have that make them good role models. He's trying to implement them into his own life. So it's a pleasure to welcome James Grabowski to Everyday Greatness right now. James, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Before I start though, I believe you have something you want to say.
Well, I do have a message for one of your friends. It's a happy 40th birthday to Andy Clark. Barnaby is very sorry he ended your AFL career many years ago.
Sorry, Andy C. Now, you run your video production business, End-to-End Media, from your home. How difficult is it to juggle your time between work, ABC, and your wife and son running around having a good time?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest challenges anybody has, really, time management. There was a period of time where it was quite difficult when we first had Ellery, because the apartment that we lived in became a whole lot smaller very quickly. But then we've managed to find a space that's outside of our apartment, which I am able to go to as a bit of a refuge when it comes to the post-production side of my business. However, I still do like to do a lot of the post-production at home. I've got it set up at home, so Ellery is able to come and sit and watch me work, and also we have a laptop for him so he can get some work done as well. And it's just, again, in a small part, it's a bit of role modelling, saying, we go to work during the day, we do the dinner, bath and bed, and then even after that, we don't watch television, we get some more work done. And so he has a bit of ABC kids time, but a lot of the time he's just playing in the lounge room and watching mum and dad work and hopefully do some good things. Beautiful.
I'm sure he's busy at 4 years of age, however old he is, getting his work done.
Oh yeah, he creates a lot of work, but as any parent would know, and that's an interesting challenge as well, because normally in times gone by you would look down at a job and you'd think, okay, that's X amount of hours, I'll be able to get that done by 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, and for some reason you can't really get it done in that time because the amount of extra work it creates. But it is really fun, we do love it, and in all honesty my wife is amazing, and she takes a lot of the pressure off, so to speak, in that sense.
Very nice. So let me ask about role modelling. Who did you see as a good role model, or what did you see as good role modelling when you were a kid?
Well, it's funny you ask that, because I didn't really think about it when I was a kid. Like, I looked up to people, and it was usually like a local sports person or pretty much a local sports person. And you know, I just figured because they were successful, maybe drove a nice car and were in the Illawarra Mercury, where I was from, I thought, wow, they must have it all worked out. Or they're on Win Television. And then I ended up working at Win Television and meeting a lot of these people. Then I realised that they didn't really have it all worked out. And so then, you know, there was a process of over a period of time saying, okay, well, again, I didn't really focus on them as role models. I thought, well, maybe I won't look up to them, but I didn't really get into role models or like understand role models until a bit later on.
So who do you see, or what do you see as attributes of a good role model these days?
For me, like, I just think self-awareness. I think somebody who, when you see them and you meet them and they're really self-aware of what they're really good at, and what they're competent at, and just self-aware of how they affect people around them in good and bad ways. And I think self-awareness is a key a key point. Another point is intention. I think, like, if you go into a situation with good intentions, it's really important. And you can see some people going into, whether it be a business decision or a work decision or any kind of decision really, like a seat on the bus, to wanting to sort of get out of work early or things like that. And you can see that their intention is selfish or not overly positive. That's something that I'm aware. So somebody who has really good self-awareness, has good awareness of what's happening around them and also their intentions.
So what sort of role model are you trying to be for Ellery?
Well, I just want to be a parent that's really level-headed, that different challenges in life approach you every day from every angle, and I'd like to have enough self-awareness where when they come, I just don't lose the plot. I'm able to sort of see it for what it is, sort of have a calm, relaxed, and sort of an intelligent approach to managing the situation. But also, so that's one point. So being able to manage the difficult side of life, but also playful. I want to be more playful. So I've got a brother-in-law who's he's very playful with the kids, and when I see him playing with Ellery and his kids, so Ellery's cousin, like just the games that he gets into and how playful he is, like wow, like I've got a lot to learn just in that, and yeah, so for me personally, and to have a good work ethic, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've got a television for Ellery to watch AB Kids at certain times, but we don't have a television in the house really, and like I think in years gone past, my work ethic wasn't all that great, and so I figured by just removing the television, removing those things that stop me from sort of producing and producing some content and getting some work done, remove that, and now I work in the evening and he sees that, and I'm looking forward to when he's doing his homework, so he'll be able to sit next to me and I'll be doing my work, he'll be doing his work, and it's just creating a good work ethic habit.
So work ethic and playfulness are two traits you admire. What are the other traits you look for in other people to make them good role models?
It's really simple. I don't think it's as many as, it's not such a great list. It's a really small list. I think my number one is self-awareness. You know what I mean? Being a good person, having good intentions, and maybe being a little bit more inquisitive. Like, so you can see people at work, or you can see people at the bus stop, or you could see people anywhere, and you can, and they might respond really badly or poorly to you one day, and you could judge that person, and you could see that person over the next 10 years and have an opinion on that person for the next 10 years about one situation, and so many things could have happened in their life in that period of time. So I'm really aware of, I don't want to have an opinion on anybody, like at any stage, but especially after only one or two meetings. And I think people can, meet somebody for the first time in numerous situations and be really unaware of what they're going through at that time. And I think that's a bit hard. And I think if people were able to be a little bit softer and maybe a little bit more inquisitive and ask some more questions, I think they'd get a lot more out of it and they'd have a nicer day.
So when you see someone who's displaying good attributes you'd like to implement in your life, how do you go about that? How do you change yourself to bring these better person?
Well, it's by being self-aware. It's one thing I'm actually really good at. Like, I don't want to beat my drum, but like I can read something, I can see somebody doing, like they've just got their life together, and then I'll just start a conversation with them, and it's a really simple question. So even like, well, if you know them, it's easy, but even if you don't know them, say hi, how you doing? Like, oh, what did you get up to on the weekend? You know what I mean, and things like that, and you can see, you can get a pretty good gauge on what people are up to and things like that by just asking what they did on the weekend, or did you have to travel far to get here? And then you can, and if their weekend was challenging and it took them a long time to get to wherever they are and through the Sydney traffic, and they've still got a really good outlook on the day, I'm thinking, wow, okay, like I can learn something from you. Like that's a good lesson. So then those sort of people I gravitate towards. I'm like, okay, look, I'd like to spend more time with them. I don't say that to them, but I might hang around them a bit more. But I just find those people interesting, and I really, it's a really fun process. And by starting your day and each day like that, you always tend to gravitate towards really well-adjusted, level-headed, and hopefully like-minded people.
So why do you think it's important that your son, Ellery, has good role models around him as he's growing up?
Oh, I just think in your life, if you make a lot of poor decisions and you make a lot of poor decisions early, your life becomes really difficult. Like you can go down so many different paths just from even a handful of poor decisions. So I think for Ellery, it's really important that I don't know, it'll make his life a bit easier. It'll be more fun. It's more engaging. You have a better mindset, and it's just it's just important for your own mental health, and yeah, sorry, you're right.
Do you and your wife, Jo, did you sit down when Ellery was born and come up with a game plan to be good role models, or you just take it one day at a time, try and set a good example?
Well, we didn't. It was before Ellery was born. When we first started going out, we did make time, and I think it was probably every 2 weeks for maybe 3 months. We would go to a cafe, and it was no phones, no nothing, and I had a notepad and pen, and we would talk about values, like our values as individuals, and yeah, so come up with our sort of list of 5, main values that how we want to live our life, and from that point, and it took a while to get on the same page because I didn't want to coerce Jo into thinking I think this should be at the top of your list, and the same for Jo and I, and but we would discuss the different values and we would discuss their importance, and we would do it for an hour every 2 weeks for maybe 3 months, and then to the point where it was like, okay, they're our values, and then that just sort of transpired into our normal life, and then from there we had values first, then we had sort of goals second, and it just makes for a happier life.
So what do you think your best attributes are as a role model for your son these days?
I've said it a couple of times now, but it's self-awareness. Like, even though I'm not completely self-aware, but I have really good self-awareness, and I can say to either Jo or Ellery that, look, I'm not dealing with this situation overly well at the moment, so don't take anything personally. I could be dealing with it better, and being able to, assess when I'm doing something well and when I'm doing something not so well. And that for me is number one. And then also intention. Like, I know I've said that again, but I just want to have good intentions behind my actions. If I've got good intentions and I'm self-aware, I'll be heading in the direction that I want to head in.
And what sort of person do you want your son to be in the coming years as he's growing up?
I want him to be I just want him to enjoy life. I want him to be level-headed. I want him to be able to think about others and be able to, contribute to the community. I'd like him to be the sort of person, if like in 10 years, not in 10 years' time, but when he walks into any room, people are saying, I'm glad he's here. Like, I really like spending time with him. I like him in this space. So I would like him to be, I'm not thinking about football or anything like that. I'd like him, when he walks into a room, whether it be work or whether it be a social scene or whether it be a party or something, people are going, oh man, I'm really glad Ella is here. I think I'd like him to be that sort of person.
Well, James Grabowski, this is just my 2 cents, which may not be worth a great deal, but I think you're inadvertently a sensational role model. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Barnaby. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Now we're going to do the Everyday Greatness Shuffle. And James, if we could get Nicole Chettle in the hot seat.
Excellent.
Nicole, welcome.
Thank you very much.
To be a good role model, you don't need to be the most successful, the most powerful, or the richest person. You just need to be setting a good example and doing things with your life that you think the people who follow in your footsteps would be proud to do themselves. Nicole Chettle is a perfect example of exactly that. Nicole is a newsreader at ABC Television. She's also a loving mother, wife, and a friend to many. In a lot of people's eyes, Nicole Chettle would be the epitome of success. But Nicole's own role models, her parents, were dealt some pretty rough hands growing up. But they played their cards as well as they possibly could, so they could give Nicole the best opportunities they could. And it's obviously paid off. Nicole is a sensational human being, and I am pleased to say she joins us now on Everyday Greatness. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful, Barnaby.
No problem. Now, before I start, I believe you have something you wanted to say.
Absolutely. This is a spectacular venue, and type 1 diabetes is an issue that's close to my heart as well. It's touched, the lives of families I know. So I wanted to say to Donna and Brian, good luck tonight, and I hope the Jelly Bean Ball is fantastic.
Thank you. So reading national news must be it is a huge responsibility. Do you have any weird routines? Like, do you need a bowl of blue M&Ms before you start?
No, I don't think so, although it's quite funny because I often present for the news channel, which is a 24-hour channel, and then occasionally I'll read the 7 o'clock news. And you're lucky on the 7 o'clock news, they'll spoil you with like a cup of tea with a cup and saucer. So I think they may have created a monster now because I quite like my cup of tea before I go on air. But usually, I don't know if you've noticed with newsreaders, they're beautifully groomed. I'm the one there 5 minutes before quickly putting on some nail polish and just making sure that I'm, looking appropriate before I front the cameras.
Beautiful. So your mother she was one of the forgotten Australians. She had a fairly rough upbringing. Well, how hard was her life growing up?
She would be fairly humble about it, I think. But my mum was one of 9 children, and my grandparents had an alcohol problem. So the children were taken away. So mum was separated from her 8 brothers and sisters, and they were all sent to different homes, and a lot of them suffered the worst kinds of abuse. And I remember when I started working at the ABC, we were driving through Ultimo, and Mum pointed to some public toilets which were about a block away from where I read the news. And she said, I used to sleep in there, and I was aghast. I said, well, what? And she said, when I'd run away from the home to try and find her parents, I figured I'd be safe in the ladies' toilets. So this little girl who had a really bad stutter was homeless and sleeping in public toilets about a block from where I'm now reading the news. And I'm not saying that to say that, I'm particularly great, but I think the way she met my dad, turned her life around, placed a value on education, and was really determined that I would have everything she never had is impressive.
So Prime Minister Kevin Rudd offered an apology to the forgotten Australians, of which your mum was one, and you went with her to Parliament House.
I did.
To witness that. How was that, sharing something so important with
It was
your mother?
really emotional because I was pregnant at the time. So my daughter's 8 now, but this was before she was born. And, I'd been to the Great Hall in Parliament House before, but I went with my aunt who'd come from rural Queensland, and I sat there, and there were a lot of people who I think it's fair to say were pretty broken by their experience. But we sat there, and it was quite emotional listening to politicians on both sides of the political spectrum really struggle with their emotions. Putting aside that political point scoring, it was a really special moment to see that genuine, emotion coming out in that apology. I believe the now Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull was crying, and we did too when he apologised for the times that kids ran away, like my mum, and no one asked why. But at the end of it, there was a moment where Mum pressed through the crowd, and she actually met the Prime Minister. And I said to her later, Mum, what did you say? And she just beamed. She was so excited, and she said, I told him thank you. This apology makes us feel worthwhile. And she said he held both her hands, he looked her in the eye and said, it's a very important day. And I just had this sense that this home girl, as they called them, this homeless girl with the stutter, she came good, she met the Prime Minister, and they shared that moment. But at the same time, it was a little bit heartbreaking to hear her say that this apology made her feel worthwhile. I've seen the same thing covering the Royal Commission into child abuse, and I've heard people give evidence. There was one Indigenous woman who'd been in a children's home who suffered terribly, and she said that she felt that she wasn't worthy to give evidence because she wasn't educated. And I wanted to chase her out. I saw her leave the commission and her shoulders were rolled forward, and I wanted to chase her and say, you know, the country knows what happened and they know that it was wrong because you had the courage to speak. So I guess sometimes when you're thinking of role models, they're not necessarily, you know, the people you'd expect.
What was your household like growing up?
It was happy. There was lots of love. But you know, it was tough. My parents didn't have a lot of money, and as I said, they worked hard, long hours. Mum was a cleaner. My dad worked for Telstra for years, installing phones before he became a cleaner too. So I really had a sense of them trying to, you know, give my brother and I everything that they didn't have, particularly with education. So, you know, I'm the first person in my family to go to university, and I remember them encouraging me, you know, catch the train down to Melbourne. They drove me to Bathurst, they drove me to Sydney to check out university courses. And that was just the expectation. Oh, well, you go to school, you go to uni. It wasn't until I was at uni and I looked back and thought, wow, that's actually a big sacrifice for them. You know, they've given a lot so that I'd have this opportunity. So, yeah.
Have the hardships your mother suffered influenced the way you parent your little girl?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Mum, look, it's hard because you don't want your child to be indulged or spoilt or anything like that. So in some ways, her experience of the world is completely different to what my mum went through. And yet I did ask Mum to write to my daughter when she was christened, and also my mother-in-law, just talking about, you know, the values that they want their granddaughter to have. And I think, you know, this idea of being kind to other people, to have manners. You know, my mum has a very strong emphasis on, you know, please, may I, thank you. Certainly something I've passed on to my daughter, little things. But I remember working in London at ITV, and a colleague said, Nicole, you're the first producer I've ever met who says, excuse me. I'm like, oh, what would you expect me to say? But I think that's important, you know, certainly in parenting, but also in our work. You know, it doesn't matter where you are. I think that general kindness and trying to be polite is really important.
James was saying earlier on that he didn't think much about being a role model when he was younger. How important did you think your mother was when you were a little girl?
Oh, well, she was the centre of my world, obviously, but I didn't think about it, just like James. I didn't think about, you know, role models so much when I was growing up. Although it's funny because I used to tell people I sort of fell into journalism. But when I look back on it, you know, I was in this tiny country town, and my mum, as I was walking out the door to go to school, used to say, you know, Nicole, there's wars happening in the world. Do you know how lucky you are, as she would put it, to go from A to B without there being tanks rolling down the street? And I realised even from a very young age, you know, we would watch news and current affairs, and she encouraged us to, you know what was happening in the world and to have a heart. She used to say, you know, it's not enough to be beautiful on the outside, you have to be beautiful on the inside too. And now I find that phrase tumbling out of my mouth when I talk to other little kids, you know, in the community. That person's beautiful on the inside.
So you've just gone on a bit of a health kick over the last few years.
Yep.
What prompted that?
I lost my beautiful dad back in 2011. He had chronic heart failure, he had heart disease. And so I say that I had a midlife crisis at 34 because I was exactly half of his age when he died. And I remember, you know, during the process he was saying, well, it's not particularly surprising. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, oh, well, you know, my parents and grandparents had heart issues. And I'm like, Dad, are you saying that 3 generations in front of me have heart, like that's the kind of medical history you might want to pass on? So I took up running at the time and started running every day, and it was hilarious because I was the kid in high school who never wanted to be doing cross country, and I ended up running a half marathon. Discovered that my hips aren't really built for running, but I was really determined that for my little girl, she wouldn't see me die perhaps prematurely and think, well, it didn't have to be this way. So now I go to the gym pretty much every day. You know, I'm out the door at 6 o'clock and I do these sort of extend bar classes. I love dancing, so it's sort of a combination of Pilates and ballet. And I do small group classes, and I come back, and when Jess comes back, I tell her, you know, I've been off, I've been exercising, I'm keeping my heart healthy. And she sees that, and I've made a conscious decision, I suppose, in terms of role modelling, that she sees actually mum has to take time to be healthy, and it does require a bit of effort, and out you go kind of thing. I think it's important to make that time for yourself, but also for kids to understand that it's not about being, you know, a skinny mini or looking like a model. It's about keeping your heart healthy, so hopefully you can have a nice long life.
So it seems the Chettle acorn hasn't fallen far from the tree. Your father wrote a letter to your daughter.
That's right. Yep.
About being a good person.
Yep.
Would you read that for us now?
Sure. This is part of it that he and mum wrote for my daughter's christening, and he says, "We wish you all the very best in life, but there will be times when things do not go your way. The way you handle these rough patches will develop your character. Look after yourself first, then family and friends. Take an active interest in your community and remain mindful of the needs of others. Spoilt rotten, Jessica?" That's my daughter's name. "No way. But we'd like you to have values in life and education, lots of fun, and remember that good manners and respect for others will always open doors. We hope to live long enough," oh, this makes me emotional, "we hope to live long enough to watch you achieve your milestones in life and be able to share them with you. Love from Nana Linda and Poppy Fred on the occasion of your christening."
Beautiful, beautiful. So how important was Poppy Fred, I'm assuming is your dad?
Yeah.
How important was he in your life from the point of view now of being a mother of a young girl yourself?
Well, it's funny how traits skip a generation. So my daughter has her Poppy's smile. So I see him, you know, every day when she smiles at me, I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, that's Dad right there. I have a photo by her bed of him reading to her when she was only a toddler, but you know, him reading her a book, and she knows she was loved. But I also have this theory that one of my dad's biggest strengths from anyone who knew him was that he was kind. So we were quite shocked at his funeral, and I don't want to sound ghoulish, but the room was full to overflowing. So many more people came than we ever imagined, and everyone was talking about gentle Fred, kind Fred. This was a person who would never put himself out there as a role model, and yet he touched so many lives. And I was in touch with a friend of mine recently who's based in New York, and she was really kind to me when I was going through a tough time. And I just said to her, oh, you know, I think kindness leaves footprints in other people's lives. And I guess if you're going to talk about role models, that's what it is for me. It's the people who are kind at the end of the day. I want my daughter to be happy and confident, but I also want her to be kind, like her Poppy Fred.
And to be kind, do people need to aim to be the kindest person in history and, you know, lead countries and lead armies into battle?
I don't think it
Or
hurts.
is just being a good example enough?
I don't think it hurts. Look, I think it's actually a bit of both. Obviously, you don't have to be a big leader, but I don't think it's a bad thing to step outside your comfort zone. For instance, I would never have imagined in a million years that I'd even be here. But you know, I came here today partly because of you, because you've always got a smile on your face. You've been through lots of challenges in your own life, and yet you're one of the most positive people I know. You're a kind person. So that's kind of why I'm here. And I think that you know, there was a colleague that I worked with years ago. Some people watching might remember him. His name was Paul Lockyer, and you remind me a bit of Paul. And when he died suddenly in a helicopter crash, something stuck with me, and a friend said, oh, you know, he always had a smile on his face, and he always had a kind word to say to someone. And that's how simple it can be. You know, like when James was saying earlier about being self-aware, well, that could just be being, you know, having a smile for someone and having something nice to say to them. You don't know what that person's going through. So, you know, I think that's a good thing. And the other thing I would say is, in my job, I'm always asking people to talk about often really horrible things that have happened to them. But the most inspiring people I know are people who can, you know, are happy to talk about it, are kind in their dealings. I think of Mark and Faye Levison, whose son was murdered, and we'd be at the coroner's court talking to them about what was clearly the most distressing thing ever to happen to them, and yet they were always so lovely, always happy to share, you know, their time to talk about this. So they're not world leaders, but they're great people who I'd like to be a little bit more like.
So this interview is running the risk of going to a mutual appreciation society. Let's get back to your running. What are your aims for your running? Are you wanting to run a marathon or
do you know what I'd love?
Marathon?
I would love to. However, I've discovered that I have wonky hips, and they've said yes, you can run, but if you continue to do that, you might need a hip transplant at 50. So I'm like, no, I don't particularly want to do that. So I'm kind of enviously eyeing off colleagues who are doing that kind of thing. I am getting back into running, but I have to keep it at smaller distances on the grass. But for me, it's more about exercising every day, you know, much more modest goals now, you know, trying to do my push-ups and that sort of thing on my toes, and I'm getting there, and, you know, that's really good. So I want to be fit and healthy, and, you know, I think it just helps you be better. You know, means you've got more energy at work, means you've got more energy at home, but it's fine. It's actually making the time to do it, you know, because sometimes I think it's easy to go, oh, it's all too hard. So for me, the key is getting up particularly early, you know, just so that you've got the time to do it.
What are the thoughts going through your head when you're doing your health kicks, your push-ups, or you're in the past, you're jogging? Do you ever think, I'm really setting a good example of being a good role model for my daughter?
I have. There's been times where I've been out at 5 o'clock in the morning and the stars are still up, and I don't particularly want to do it because I find 20 minutes is my switch on zone. So after 20 minutes, it's quite enjoyable. But before that, frankly, it's pretty awful. I won't lie. I'm not, you know, I'm no athlete. So I'm like, oh, what am I doing? But I actually think of my daughter, and I just think, if, God forbid, something happens to me and I die of a heart attack tomorrow, I've actually had the conversation with her. You know what, Mummy is trying. I'm really trying to be healthy. I want to stick around, and you have to do the same thing. So, you know, I've missed a netball game this morning, so, you know, I hope the Ravens perform particularly well. But in terms of role modelling, she's coached by a mum and her 15-year-old daughter, who wouldn't consider themselves role models, and yet they give their time, you know, twice a week. That's one commodity that I just don't have enough of, time, particularly, you know, working. But these two ladies do that for a whole team of kids, and watching how the kids grow and, you know, own that is just awesome.
I'm sorry, Jessica, to steal your mum away from your netball game. What are you most proud of in your life these days?
Probably family. It's funny, I was talking, I'm not sure if I was talking to you about this, James. Look, I love the opportunities that I have at work, you know, particularly when you're reading the news. My husband calls me a professional gossip. You know, if something's happening around the world, it's awesome to be able to cross live, go overseas, see what's happening. But I think that, you know, family is really the best thing. You know, I'm married a saint. I have the most wonderful husband who keeps things going at home. And, you know, when I look at him and I look at my daughter, I think, well, they're the things that when I'm old and grey that I'll be most proud of, I think.
You'll never be old and grey, Nicole.
Oh no, oh no, thanks to my hairdresser, perhaps the grey bit might hold off just a bit.
So what advice would you give, and you can talk to her directly, well, what advice would you give to Jessica in terms of how she's approaching life and how she treats other people and how she should carry herself?
Goodness me, you've put me on the spot, haven't you, Barnaby? Oh look, I would hope that my little Jessica, like any parent, you want your child to be happy, but I think that if she was to really look at what even her grandparents said, be kind to yourself, be kind to other people, be mindful not just of yourself but other people, I think that's important. And I would say that ultimately kindness does leave footsteps in other people's lives. So, you know, you can be successful, you can be a world leader, you can be all of that, but it's like, gosh, can I have a really dodgy popular culture reference here?
Go for it.
Do you remember when Meghan Markle got engaged and she gave her engagement interview? My husband will be appalled that I've said this, but apparently when she was set up on a date with Prince Harry, the first thing she said to her friend was, well, is he kind? Because if he's not, what's the point? And that's what I would say to you, Jessica. Are you being kind?
And go for princes, Jessica. Nicole Chettle, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Barnaby.
And thank you to my other guests, James Grabowski and Suzanne Hopman. It's been a pleasure talking to all of these guys today. Now, I hope you can join us next month, the first Saturday of next month at 10 a.m. I'm going to be speaking to some of the realest or the most real people in Australia, Kathy and Ralph Kelly. We're going to be talking about what it means to stay kind and be good to the people around you. So I hope you can join us then. I'd like to also thank our major sponsors today, ARA Group and the crew at Look Studios, and also to the Danny Foundation and the Hyatt Regency for hosting us today. And I hope that if you can join us next month, that'd be tremendous. But if not, I hope you walk down the street with your head up, your shoulders back, being proud of being an everyday Joe Bag of Donuts.
Every day, we get things off the ground, keeping you connected and secure. We keep things running smoothly and know the importance of giving back. we're always looking at the bigger picture. We are ARA, reliable solutions for facilities and infrastructure.
I'm gonna drive this panel van to the end of the road and just leave it in the sun. I'm gonna climb that barbed wire. You can tell them all I'm not blaming anyone. Or you could tell them I'm on my way. You can keep my cell phone. I've got no intention of calling anyone. These shoes are good ones. Everything else can be figured out alone. Hold out some hope for me. Hold out some hope for you, and I hope you do. The first 25 miles have made a hole in my anesthesia. As the cold air wakes you, like the 100 times you nearly gave it up. Hold out some hope for me. Hold out a little hope for you. 'Cause only the bravest soul breaks away and rips away from the hardened people who might say, one less unbeliever, one more or less dreamer, don't matter anyway. This sad hysteria, knowing I might die without a sound. Send a joyful telegram, tell my friends stop blundering around. Brace yourself for some loneliness. Turn a corner to that deep recess you never meant to see. Hold out some hope for me. Hold out a little hope for you, and I hope you brace yourself for some loneliness. Light up the corners that you missed, 'cause only the bravest soul breaks away and rips away from the hardened people who might say, one less unbeliever, one more or less dreamer. You gotta wonder why he went so far to get away.